You just bought a gym membership, got a program, and now you're being sucked in to the fitness community more and more. And because of that, you start to hear the term training to failure and RP more and more. But you wonder, what the hell does this mean? What am I supposed to do? My name is Till, my physique went from this to this, and I'll show you in this video how I train for good progress and a minimal risk of injury. But before we even start, you need to understand there are two types of exercises. We've got the compound exercises and the isolation exercises. And this basically means, what you can see on the screen is a shoulder press. And this is a compound exercise. Compound exercises, they use multiple muscle groups, bigger muscles. For example, bench press, squat, deadlift, got the dip. And then we have isolation exercises where you have smaller muscle groups, only just one or two. But the most important thing is, when you're doing compound exercises, as you can see in the clip, I don't go to absolute failure. You saw I trained hard anyway. I tried to squeeze out the extra reps. It was quite hard, it was challenging, but I didn't go to absolute failure. In this clip, this is my last set of the shoulder press, and here we'll see what absolute failure means. So I will do half reps, I'll cheat a little bit, but when you have or do a compound exercise, and you have multiple sets of that exercise, for example, you have 3 sets of bench press, you don't want to go all out in the first set. Because when you're really trying to press up that last rep, doing fake and half reps and just squeezing everything you can, your muscles are burning so much of their energy, the other 2 sets you have left, they'll just be trash. You'll do like half of the reps you did in the first set, and you'll be tired out as hell. So like you saw, I did half reps, tried my best, went as hard as I possibly could. And now we have isolation exercises. So as you can see here, we are doing lateral raises. And with isolation exercises, you can just go as hard as you possibly can. Often these are smaller muscle groups, and they don't use that much energy. So you can just go all out. Here you will see in this clip, I'm even doing a drop set. So first I begin with 10 kilograms. When I can't do it, I drop down to 4 kilograms, I think it is. And I just go for it. You can do as hard as you can. This goes for tricep extensions, lateral raises, bicep curls. And this is just, like I said, muscles are connected to the nervous system and your heart, cardiovascular system. And these small muscle groups, they recover pretty damn quickly somehow. It feels like that anyway. And it is no problem. The same is for real delt work and all these smaller muscle groups you're training. So there you can just go as hard as you possibly can. But on the compound exercises, don't do that. Keep low and just try to train as hard as you possibly can without failing a rep. So you're still training hard, but you're not going to fail a rep, because then it will get extremely hard to do good form and just to do the reps you want to do in the sets after. And then we also got something called RPE. And that means how many reps you have left to failure, you could say. So the RPE scale goes from 1 to 10. And if you do a set, so for example, what you're seeing on the clip right now, this is RPE like 10. I can't do another rep. If you go to RPE 9, that means you can do one more rep. You have one more rep in tank. If you're RPE 8, after a set, you think you could have done 2 more reps. And especially many powerlifters, they train after RPE. So for example, you have a set and your goal is to do 7 reps. And then when you're done with the set, you want to have about 3 reps in tank. And that's how you also can use progressive overload. So if you just do, say squats for example, and you do 140 kilograms for 10 reps, and you always have 3 reps in tank, and you just slowly up the weight all the time, you will get stronger. But the most important thing, if you just listen to this, your muscles only grow when you push them past their current capacity. That's the only thing you really have to do. Push them past their current capacity. You can do it with training as hard as you possibly can. You can do it by just upping the weight. You can do it by doing more sets or dropping the weight and doing more reps. That's the only thing you need to worry about. It doesn't matter how hard you train, you could use RPE, but you need to somehow progress to overload. That is how you will see progress, how you'll become stronger. As you can see here, on the rear delt fly, I just can't do another rep. And like I said, you can see all the isolation work I did, I just went as hard as I possibly can. But when you're doing bench press and bigger exercises, do not do that. Because often it's also a lot easier to injure yourself on these compound exercises. And I think I've never heard someone say that they injured their shoulder while doing lateral raises, or that they injured their tricep while doing tricep extensions, rope extensions. The only time you hear that someone has injured himself is, I did bench press, I did dips, I did squats, I did shoulder press movements. It's always the compound exercises. So to minimize the risk of injuring yourself while doing these compound exercises, don't go to absolute failure and half rep, and because the problem is not going absolute failure. The problem is the sets afterwards, because you're so tired, your cardiovascular system just can't do it no more. You're freaking shaking. In case you don't have just one set or max 2 sets, don't go to absolute failure on squats and so on. I've done it myself. For example, you just do max squat. You have like put on 150 kilograms, do like 10 reps, and then you do like drop the weight by a lot, and then you just pump out a few more reps. But after you have done one set to absolute failure, it's really hard to keep going with the same weight. So you either need to drop it by a lot, or just my recommendation is to not even go to absolute failure. Just did it like you saw in the shoulder press movement.